There's a chance Saka might be injured for Arsenal against Bournemouth, and all the talk online is now about whether Arsenal are over-reliant on their right winger, who's played an awful amount of minutes, and now we're at the stage where people are looking at this and going, if he's out, Arsenal are in big trouble. Harry, you're an Arsenal fan. How do you feel about that?
I don't think you can say that Arsenal are in big trouble without him. I think he's a key player. I think he's really, really important to the side, and every great side has players that are irreplaceable. That's just football. You look at Manchester City.
You prepared the answer.
Well,
yeah.
It's true, because if you look at Manchester City, look at the squad that they've got and look at the reaction to Rodri being out, for example. Yeah. Look at the reaction when De Bruyne is not available. There are some players, guys, that are just so good that when you're without them, you're going to be weaker, and there's no point trying to pretend otherwise. But Arsenal spent a long time trying to build a squad. I feel like they've built a squad now that is capable of a bit of rotation here and there. Does it mean they're at 100% when one of those key players is missing? No. They've been without Odegaard for months now, and they've managed to find a way to play that's slightly different, but that sort of masks that problem for them. Look, I think we've got Liverpool coming up the following weekend, and I think from an Arsenal's perspective, if there's any doubt over Bukayo Saka, then use the squad that you've built. Bring Raheem Sterling in if that's what you need to do. Do something different. Utilise the squad and save him for a game that is going to be massive next week. Every game is huge in this division, and you've got to win at Bournemouth first if you've got title aspirations, of course. But you should be able to use the squad. Otherwise, what was the point in assembling it?
Do you think this is a problem? I completely hear your point about every team having quote-unquote irreplaceable players. But I think with Rodri and Saka, and I think we did a video at the start of the season where we said who are the two most important players, or three most. And I think we all said Saka and Rodri, if they're out because of the lack of replacements in the respective sides, they are the most important players.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I don't think Saka's Arsenal's most important player. I think Odegaard's the most important player, and he's been out and they've won, I think, every game since he's been out. I think Arteta's a problem solver, and people weren't particularly happy when I called Arsenal boring, and since then they've scored 14 goals in 4 games. So maybe I wasn't right, but Arteta clearly has changed his style of play without Odegaard, and it's working. It's a completely different Arsenal side than we saw last year. And if Saka goes, they'll do exactly the same. I think the right wing, actually, because they've got Sterling, because they've got Trossard who can play there, it's not really the end of the world. As soon as Odegaard got injured, I thought, okay, Arsenal are going to drop quite a lot of points here. City are going to have a good head start, and I was feeling quite confident about it. Then Arteta kind of has really, in the Premier League particularly, shut up shop a little bit more. I think there are a few games, I think Leicester and Southampton, luck's not the right word, but on another day they could have gone. It was like the flip of a coin. On another day you might not have got 3 points in those games. But he has, and he's found a solution to a problem in Odegaard, which I think is a much bigger problem than the Saka problem.
I agree with that. I think Odegaard is the one...
My whole theory's gone.
He's the one that Arsenal like to play through, and in his absence, they've had to find a different way of doing things. People have been referring to the kind of like 4-4-2 that you see from Arsenal at the minute out of possession. And what they've done is said, well, we don't have that natural right-sided 8 that we can filter our whole game through. So what we'll do is we'll play with another forward. And Trossard and Havertz have been playing as the 2 strikers, with Havertz using his kind of midfield capabilities to drop that bit deeper and support out of possession, but also having that energy to get forward. On the right wing as well, you could throw Gabriel Jesus in there. Yeah. He's done a great job there for Manchester City in the past. When we played at the Etihad last season, he played there in Saka's absence, and he did a really, really good job. He is a player for me that can fill a multitude of positions. So it's not the end of the world that Saka's out. You'd obviously prefer to have him. But the other thing is, Mikel Merino's back. And surely by now he's ready to start. He had another total of around about 90 minutes across Spain's 2 internationals during this break. So you could go back, in theory, to the system that Mikel Arteta wants to play, which is with the 2-8s, by bringing Mikel Merino back in if you want as well.
You also have the problem at right back as well, where White could be out, Timber could be out. The sheet that I've got in front of me makes this Arsenal team look pretty mediocre. On another day, obviously this game is against Bournemouth, but it's Partey at right back. Then Jorginho and Rice as a 2 in midfield. with he did not like that. Kim just had to kick the desk. Jorginho Rice in a midfield 2. You're saying possibly Marino comes in there. This for me feels like a really interesting moment for Sterling out of the whole picture, because I think people are sort of waiting for Sterling to quote unquote arrive at Arsenal. I don't actually think we're ever going to get to a point where he plays every single game, and I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where we're going, that's the Sterling of old. But I think this is the exact game where Sterling scores you a last minute winner, and you go, that's why we bought him in.
Yeah, and we mentioned before as well, when Sterling went to Arsenal, he was a completely different player when Mikel Arteta was at City than when Mikel Arteta left. It seems like Arteta kind of made Sterling that goal-scoring winger that he was. I think in the season when they were both together and they'd had a couple of years together, Sterling scored 53 goals in the calendar year, second only to Messi on 55. A ridiculous tally for a man who has been slated in the media relentlessly for not being able to finish. And that was because Arteta was there. That's been heavily reported that those two had a fantastic relationship. So it was no surprise whatsoever that Arteta's brought him in. And as you mentioned, this is the type of game you want. It's going to be quite wide open. We know that Bournemouth actually like to play football. They're at home. They'll definitely have a go at Arsenal. There's going to be a lot of space. Sterling's still got pace. He's still got football in now. So we saw it at times last season. There's no reason why he can't start scoring goals for Arsenal. He's not going to be the first name on the team sheet, and he's not going to cement a starting slot. I'd be very surprised if he does, because what we've seen from him over the last 3 years is he is inconsistent. That's been a feature of his play for quite a while now. But this is a game for him, and if he can score 1 or 2, get a start in the next game as well, get a start against Liverpool, can start to see something rolling, I think.
Well, there is a chance that Sterling has to play as well, because obviously Martinelli on international duty picked up a problem. We don't really know at the time of recording whether he's going to be available. And yeah, Sterling was seen as someone that could come in and be an upgrade on Reece Nelson. Didn't pay anything for him, got him on a cheap loan deal, and so it made a lot of sense. But you're right to say that this is the kind of game that you kind of need these players to step up and help you.
This is what you build a squad for, right?
Exactly.
It's one of those games where like you throw in Jorginho and go, he'll survive this one. He won't play against Liverpool, and you go, Jesus, you'll survive this one. I don't know, is Zinchenko injured?
Zinchenko's injured.
Yeah, so like your injury list is growing, and we spoke about this before. Actually, you had a lot of luck last season. And to be fair, Harry, you're an honest Arsenal fan. Do you feel like
we do exist
somewhere out there?
You feel like the luck potentially got all used up last year, and now you're feeling like the brunt of the injuries?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I believe that it works like that, where like you use up your luck in 1 year and then the next year it comes back to bite you. I just think the nature of the games we've had at the start of the season as well, in terms of their difficulty, has made it very hard to rest people when we might have done. And that's put people into kind of red zones and stuff like that. And we've seen injuries. For example, Partey played right back against Southampton. I thought did an admirable job. We know it's not his position, but going away to Bournemouth, that's different. And I'm not as comfortable with that. Calafiori's come in at left back and been really, really good. The fact that he can play as a centre-half helps Arsenal, because it means that they can shift the remaining back three across and push Partey that little bit further forward. But you're right to highlight people like Jorginho. You know, he didn't start a game. He hadn't played pretty much anything until that Spurs game away. And he gets thrown in the midst of an injury crisis, and he does brilliantly. So Mikel Arteta, I feel, has built now a group where he's got those kind of characters in there that he feels that he can throw in at any point and they'll do a job. Sterling is one of them. That's why he brought him in. Jorginho is another one of those kind of Mr. Reliables that you can bring in and they'll do a decent job. So I just think this is the game where you need to use the squad. The next game is Liverpool. Obviously, there's one eye on that a little bit. There's got to be, no matter how much you deny it, there will be.
Well, this is exactly when Sterling, for me, is going to rise for Arsenal and win it last minute 2-1. H, what do you think?
I'm going to go for the boring old 1-0 to the Arsenal. I fancy them from a set piece.
This guy, you like this boring football, and we slate it every week.
We slate it every week.
It's not that we like it, right? We understand that right now we are without our biggest creative force. Yeah. And we are trying to find a way to play without him. Add to that, there's doubt over Saka, there's doubt over Martinelli. It makes sense that Arsenal lean on their defensive strength as to make that the core of their performance, and then they'll try and nick the game in whatever way they can. And I think from set pieces, they could cause Bournemouth problems.
It's going to be a Gabriel header 1-0. you know it is. I think if Bournemouth do score, I don't think Arsenal will win. I can't actually see Arsenal scoring more than 2 goals, especially if there's no Odegaard, no Saka.